welcome and Jayavon to Satsang. Yay, we're back. It's fall. It's damp and luscious out there. And we'll start with the prayers, and then we'll dive into our investigation of disidentification. And so just please sit up attentively without making yourself too concerned about the form, and just allow yourself to be attentive and alert as well as at ease and relaxed. And as the sound fades, notice the vibration that still exists in the chest, the arms, maybe the palms, the throat, the skull. Even though you're not making a sound. Now allow your attention to be drawn upwards to the spot right between the eyebrows. And 2 to 3 inches into the center of the skull. And allow yourself to rest in this recognizable stillness. From this place of introversion, begin to bring your attention to your breath. Noticing the ebb and the flow of your breath as it comes and goes. Allow the palms to rest on the knees, palms down. And on your next inhalation, just lean back just a touch, extending through the sternum and out through the crown of the head, eyes closed. And as you're ready to exhale, begin to fold at the hip crease and allow the hands to begin to find their way across the floor. As you begin to fold forward, noticing where that natural place to stop is. All of your attention on the breath as the breath comes back in. Allow yourself to slowly find your way coming upright again. And as you find yourself to the top of the inhalation, feel the extension through the sternum and out through the crown of the head. And then as you're ready, begin to fold forward again, exhaling, letting the hands slide along the floor, noticing that natural stop point. As you're ready to breathe in, following that inhalation all the way up. Leaning back just a little bit. Extending through the sternum, out through the crown. Notice the pause at the top of the inhalation. And then as you're ready to exhale, and prompted to do so, begin to fold forward. Notice the pause at the end of the exhalation. And then you're on your own, moving between that inhalation and that exhalation. Completely attuned to the feel of the body as you come up. Rest in that pause where there's no breath and no mind. And then as you exhale, whenever you feel prompted, emptying your lungs fully, and notice that pause at the end of the exhalation again where there's no breath, no mind. Continuing on your own. Allowing this to be an induction technique that draws you deeper into inward focus. The body and the breath moving together in perfect harmony. Complete undivided attention, moment by moment, movement by movement. Now the next time you find your way upright, just come to sit in stillness, palms resting on the thighs, eyes closed. Again, noticing this recognizable stillness as it permeates the entire body. And mind. Now again, bring your attention to your breath without making yourself unduly concerned. Notice the in and the out of the breath. Feel the rise and the fall of the abdomen. And visualize a small opening in the center of the abdomen, as if you could breathe in and out of the small opening in the center of the abdomen. To help focus your mental faculties, feel free to bring a hand to the center of the abdomen as a touchstone. As you breathe in and out of that small opening in the center of the abdomen. All of your attention on any sensations in the center of the abdomen. Now, after the next inhalation, feel the breath rise up towards the center of the chest. And as if the breath could exit a small opening in the center of the chest. All of your attention now on the center of the chest. As the breathing pattern is breathing in through the center of the abdomen, Feel the breath rise up and exit a small opening in the center of the chest. After the next inhalation, close off that opening in the center of the abdomen. Feel the breath rise up, and as if you could simply breathe in and out of the opening in the center of the chest. Again, notice any sensations around the center of the chest. As you feel the breath go in and out. Now the hands are resting, palms up. The next breath that comes in through the center of the chest, feel it rise up towards the shoulders, split in two, and radiate down each arm, pulling into the palm of each hand and exiting a small opening in the palm of each hand. The breathing pattern is now breathing in through the center of the chest. Feel the breath rise up and radiate down each arm, pulling in the palm of each hand, exiting small openings in the palm of each hand. All of your attention on the palms of the hands. After the next breath in, close off the opening in the center of chest. Feel the breath rise up towards the shoulders. Split the breath into and allow it to radiate down each arm, pulling and exiting small openings in the palm of each hand. As if you could breathe in and out of the palms of the hands. Now slowly, imperceptibly slowly, allow the hands to rise up off of the thighs as if they're floating on their own. Begin to turn the palms and the forearms so they're facing one another. And as you breathe in and out of the palms of the hands, all of your attention on the palms of the hands, feel a magnetic pressure arise as you begin to draw the hands towards one another. And once you feel that magnetic pressure, begin to press and pull right on that edge of that magnetic pressure. Noticing the front of it, noticing the back of it. Does it have a top? Does it have a bottom? Notice the front of your hands, the back of your hands. Is there a shape to this energetic presence? All of your attention on the magnetic pressure between the palms of the hands. Don't let the hands touch and go slow as you explore the width and the depth and the density. Now, as you begin to let your hands find their way back down to the lap, notice the contents of your mind. Notice the rhythm of your breath. And in a moment, I'll ask you to open your eyes. And when I do, allow a portion of yourself to remain anchored in this recognizable stillness as you bring a portion of yourself back into the room. Now, open your eyes. Open your eyes. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The first question is, when I asked you to open your eyes, did you find it was a little difficult? Maybe the eyes didn't want to open. Did anyone have that experience? When I asked you to notice the contents of your mind, were there any thoughts, any things, any objects, any colors? Did you know your name, your age, your gender? If you didn't have any thoughts or things or objects, where were you? Could you find you? I know it's hard to extract any answers out of that space. Was there a quality of timelessness? Was there a quality of unchanging? So most of you know that practice, but just in case you don't, the first practice was the bowing breath. And the intention of the bowing breath is really a reset to being knowingly aware and resting back in that presence. Okay, so it's a way of shifting the brainwave state from the waking thought pattern to more of the alpha, even theta brainwave pattern, which is where we begin to move to when we close our eyes and start to rest. And then the Kriya of Chitta Pran is a way of experiencing impersonal awareness, which is when I kept asking you if you knowing presence, knowingly aware, that's just impersonal awareness. Just it happens. We are aware all the time. Even when we're not knowingly aware, we're aware. We can't not be aware. So it's called impersonal awareness. And then, of course, the other experience of, did anyone feel something between their hands? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's impersonal prana.
My hands just...
They went way up. I saw that. So that's impersonal prana. That's not like something that is like personal to you. It's yours. It's like I could feel it, you could feel it. Everyone could feel something in a non-thing way between their hands. So the pointing here is that everything is impersonal awareness and everything is impersonal prana. And together, prana is actually the manifestation of impersonal awareness. So awareness is kind of like that resting back, and everything that comes through awareness, like all those thoughts that Leslie was pointing to, okay, all of those thoughts, or the face that you were pointing to, all of that is impersonal prana. I wanted to, I mentioned that the intention for this evening is to, that sense of disidentification. So that experience of the Kriya of Chitta Pran, again, I'm just going to point to like whatever your vision was, whatever your experience was when I asked about the contents of your mind. You all had some, maybe nothing or space, or maybe there was a vision, or maybe there were thoughts, but did you feel identified with that? So the term disidentification doesn't necessarily mean that you're like averting something. It just simply means that you're not leaning into it. You're not choosing for or against, basically. You're not saying, oh yeah, I really love this image, or I want to hold on to it, and you just keep focusing on that, and you're leaning in, as opposed to resting back, and the image or the thoughts or whatever come through, and you're not identifying with them. You're not saying, oh, that's me. You're just seeing it pass by. So interestingly enough, the satsang that we had with comedy last week that you may have listened to, there were some pointers towards disidentification. We talked about disidentification in our last weekend together. And also Chandrakant's darshan this past satsang this week spoke to disidentification. And then I opened up this Tantra book by Osho, and I opened it right to the page that points to something similar. So I thought I would continue with that and read it to you. So it says here from Osho, one who never harms the principle of non-distinction, who never discriminates, he follows the right path. Okay, so discriminating and identification are similar in the sense that we attach to them. Okay. So who never discriminates, he follows the right path and never harms the non-abiding. So this is one of the most beautiful Tantra things, Tantra teachings. Tantra says, remain homeless. Don't abide anywhere. Don't get identified and don't cling to anything. Remain homeless. Because in homelessness, you will attain to your real home. If you start abiding in this and that, you will miss the home. Don't cling to anybody, to anything, to any relationship. Enjoy, but don't cling. Enjoyment is not a problem. Once you start clinging, once the clinging mind comes in, then you are not flowing. Then a block has come in. So don't abide anywhere. Then you will abide in yourself. Don't cling to anything. And only then will you be able to rest in yourself. Be homeless. Don't cling to anything. So that image drew up for me, like not choosing this or choosing that, but enjoying everything. I think you can leave it. It's okay. You can leave it out. Thank you. Enjoying everything. And in that enjoying everything, we rest back, kind of like we just experienced in the Kriya of Chitta Pran, where things were moving through, thoughts, images, we're moving through sensations, we're moving through, and yet we weren't clinging to them, we were just simply watching them, and maybe enjoying them or maybe not, but they were still moving through. So that resting back is that unchanging quality that's constantly present, that knowingly aware. And that timeless quality that reveals that spaciousness that you were talking about. And again, universal, because it's every single one of us experience something like that in terms of a presence, even if there were things coming through the imagery, through the thoughts. So all the yamas and niyamas kind of layer together like this. Mm-hmm. So they're like the ethical principles or practices of, right action, basically, or right response. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that you don't have to, okay, I'm going to be non-harming, and then I'm going to be non-stealing, and then I'm going to be non-attachment. It's not like that. It's actually more like, I guess that's one way in, right? That's one way to the top of the mountain. The other way is actually to be attuned to what's happening now. And in that now moment, the only place you exist, here and now, when you're attuned to that, then you'll know the right action. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to actually study and go, okay, do I have this, do I have this right? The brahmacharya, do I have that right? Actually, brahmacharya is that pointer. The more attuned you are to Brahma as the prana, as God, in this moment, right action will come from that. So for example, coming back to the Kriya of Chitta Pran, so we just had this experience of going deep into a quiet brainwave state through the bowing breath, And then we were led through the Kriya of Chitta Prana. And as we came through that experience, we kind of lost ourselves. There was a timeless quality, there was an unchanging quality, there was a universal quality. And so within that, we're absolutely right here and now. Okay, even with the thoughts coming, even with the images coming that had the potential to pull us into the past or the future, there was a essence of being here and now. Okay, so that here and now had no thoughts, most of us, no thoughts, no things, no age, no no gender, no objects, no edges, no you. Like we couldn't even really find us. So in that is that moment where a thought may arise, like a vision may arise up and reveals to us right action. Mm-hmm. Where you don't have to think about, I'm undecided about this, I really don't know. And then right action may still come, but not when you're thinking it through like this. You have to wait. You have to wait, and it will be revealed because you'll feel it, you'll sense and feel. So when the prana body is amplifying and magnifying, it's actually becoming your tuning fork. Mm-hmm. And it might show up as a gut feeling or something in the heart, but you can feel too when it's not right action because you'll get a contraction. You get this sense of contraction that actually will tell you that's not right action. The contraction might be based on fear as well, right? So we talked about this the other day when we were talking about, well, if we're already if we're already full, whole, and complete, then why do we need to put our attention anywhere? And so really it's because we have the habitual compulsory patterns that are biological based on the activity of mind. And so our propensity is to identify. And so that is our propensity of humans to identify. So the piece here is that yes, we're full, whole, and complete, absolutely without a doubt. We don't need to do anything to be that because we're already it. However, where does our attention go? If our attention is going to be identified with something, then that's what we're focusing on, is expanding. But if we know that we're full, whole, and complete, we put our attention there, then that actually grows. And so when we know that we're full, whole, and complete, we're self-realized, and then that is like the beginning. That is the Jnana Yoga, right? So then once we know we're full, whole, and complete, then we're constantly cultivating that self-actualization, that become established as that, right? So we are it, and then we have to, as humans, self-actualization is that constant practice so that we become established in that. And it's not like we're trying to get to that. We're already it. We just have to continue to chop wood, carry water, and be it. Keep knowing that we're it. Come back to knowing that we're it. And that will continue to grow and magnify in that established sense. So absolutely right, that's it. And that's kind of what we were talking about on the weekend. And then when we become identified with that little me, right? The me is that I as a separate self. Okay, I am separate, right? That is that little me. That we kind of, that contraction that happens. I as a separate self. When we know that we're full, whole, and complete, it's not like we're trying to find the big me, because we'll never find the big me. The big me doesn't ever exist because it would be an object. And we know we're not an object because we just had that experience of the Kriya of Chitta Prana that was timeless, universal, unchanging presence. There was no object except for maybe some thoughts, or maybe a vision, but we didn't reach out to grab it, we just saw it passing by. And we knew that wasn't us, it was just something moving through the screen of this presence, through impersonal awareness. It was prana, impersonal prana moving through impersonal awareness. But when we identify with that, that's me, then that's where we become that little me. So even as the little me, we're trying to we think, I want to become the big me, I want to be established as my big self, then that's an object. Do you see? So we were unknowingly aware, and now we're knowingly aware. Yeah. Okay. And so with that knowingly aware, we have right action that reveals itself when we connect with what's happening here and now. We know life will reveal itself to us, right? So the yamas and niyamas are part of that web that right action comes from.
Okay.
Right? So it's been a foundational teaching for centuries, thousands of years, as this is the ethics and the values of humanity, right? And so we don't have to try and be that because we already are that, but we simply have to attune to that in the moment, because when we aren't attuned to that in the moment, that little me is afraid and living from those lower centers that you're pointing to, those biological centers of desire, attachment, aversion, any of the afflictions, ignorance, egoism, clinging to bodily life, all of those afflictions keep us unknowingly aware. Okay? And those afflictions are human nature. Okay. So you're absolutely right. Now that we are knowingly aware, we see our humanness as impersonal prana moving through impersonal awareness. And so in that moment of checking in, dropping in, what's happening now, here and now, right action comes from that point. Does that help?
Yes. Yeah.
So then, yes, you're not living from the lower centers. You're like more in the heart center, more in that right response center.
And you kind of,
because you're attuned.
Yeah, that's what I'm sensing, is because when you can kind of, I don't want to point down, but yeah, you're like, okay, that's a little me, that's a little me, that's a little me, and then bring your awareness up. I just answered my own question. Bring your awareness up from that to the big me.
Even just into the heart. And it's actually, that's the point I'm pointing, that's the piece I brought forth before. It's like the little me is an identification of I am a separative self. Okay? When we identify with I am separate, and that feeling of separation, that's when we're in that me, because we can't see. It's like we have blinders on and we can't actually see that we are not separate, that we are part of the whole, that we are full, whole, and complete. And there's no big me to get to because we're already it. Big me would imply that there's an object, and there is no object, because that who is observing is presence, source. So what Kamini was pointing to is be the best expression of source, right? In the moment. So when you're in, like right now, let's say here and now, we can all get identified with, oh, I should have done that differently. I could have been better. Well, the question is, could you have been different? Could you be better with what just happened? No, not necessarily. No, you couldn't. But can you learn and allow what happened in the past to inform going forward? And then you surrender the results, right? Because the same situation may have the same outplay. You still have done the best in that moment. And it's an expression of impersonal prana moving through impersonal awareness. Always. Knowingly aware or not. Gurudev says that it happens naturally.
Yeah.
It happens naturally. That the purification processes that we go through, simply getting on the mat, moving our bodies, simply, that in itself will guide us to shift what we're actually ingesting in terms of food. We'll be drawn towards stillness as just a way of being. So maybe cultivating, having a regular practice of meditation or experiencing yoga nidra. Both of those help with that life mastery of disidentification. And so when we have that, then it's easier to be attuned, because when those things pop up that kind of have the propensity to draw our attention into them, and we can get entangled, we have the knowledge from resting back in meditation and watching and observing that we know we don't want to get entangled, so we actually remain steady. We remain steady. And we put our attention where we want it to go, right? So what Devaki is pointing to is she wants her attention to go away from maybe some old pattern of inner conflict to mantra. So she consciously turns her attention away from that inner conflict, whatever the dialogue of the mind is saying, to mantra. She just basically replaces it. And that inner dialogue is just samskara, or vritti, energy, world, activity. And so she literally chooses not to play in that vritti and actually to create a new samskara, a new vritti called mantra, which has a vibration to it. This has a vibration too, and she's choosing this vibration over here. Right. So she's turning her attention, she's redirecting her attention basically to what she wants to expand, what she wants to become established in. So what happens when, I mean, you're pointing to this, how you could be in that mind, but you find yourself kind of all of a sudden you realize that you're chanting mantra, and so it sounds like you've literally got into the habit of parking the car with the chitter chatter, so withdrawing your attention from that, and it's already turning towards mantra, right, which is a vibration, which is a frequency. And it also is, mantra is all about God, like God as in source, right? And so hum, for example, I am that, right? A reminder that I am that. I'm not these thoughts over here, but I am that. Impersonal awareness, that constant, unchanging, timeless, universal presence. I am knowingly aware. That's what you're putting your attention to. So it's like saying, remember, I'm remembering, or I'm now shifting my identification with this over here. And I don't want to say even identifying with this, because that would say that there's an object to identify with, but it's like really more disidentifying with this over here.
Mm-hmm. It's not even a sense of identifying, it's just this is what's coming up.
Yeah.
Going with it.
And so the vrittis that happen as a means of thought, the activity of mind, those vrittis that happen, we tend to go around in a circle, and so it's kind of like driving our car around and around in circles. And so what's happening is that pattern, that propensity is actually breaking, stopping, and a new samskara is being created. And so that old samskara is actually, those old vrittis are beginning to, if you continue to drive around in circles, it's going to deepen the groove. Eventually you'll see in the parking lot there's a big groove from your car going around in circles, right? But as that propensity is breaking, just because you find yourself in mantra, then it's dissolving. That samskara and vritti is dissolving, and this new one is actually growing, right? So then, of course, you find yourself there more often. Yeah.
More.
So what happens when you do catch yourself caught identifying with thoughts or actions or experiences? So one way of dismantling can be, who journals here? Who likes to journal?
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll notice that you might not notice so much anymore, because I have the sense that you're journaling about something slightly differently based on who you are studying with. However, if you have ever recalled journaling and you were writing about something happened in your life and you're writing about it, you're writing it out to kind of process it, right? And you might notice over the course of time, as you're in this establishing yourself in the sadhana, you might notice that those journal entries become shorter and less processing. And so eventually you might find yourself feeling, oh, I should go write about this, and then it's gone, and has already come and gone. And you don't even need to, because it's just automatically shifted in itself, because you've been focusing so much on dismantling it that the dismantling happens almost in lightning speed now, right? So it's good night. We're gonna have a pajama satsang one weekend. Maybe we'll do it for Thanksgiving weekend. Pajama satsang. We can all wear our PJs. Yeah. And sometimes when we're dreaming, we wake up, we can really feel so caught in the dream, right? And what the interesting thing is that happens in life too. We get really caught in what's happening in life. It's the waking dream, right? And so we can easily dismantle it the same way. It seems more real because it's, more familiar. When we have a dream, it's not as familiar. So when we're in the waking dream, it's like, this is familiar and I feel more entangled in it. But we can still dismantle it the same way by dropping into how we're feeling and notice what's going on there, the here and now, as opposed to whatever the thoughts are about what's happening out there as the objects, right? Because when we're caught in those, and then those entanglements, that's where I, as a separate self, emerges. So I can only tell you what I sense for myself.
Okay.
And there may be more, right? There might be, it might be past my pay grade, maybe. But what I can say is this. So you're absolutely right. There's love and there's fear, okay? Just like there's shadow and there's light, right? And love sees everything in love, right? Even the fear in love. Fear arises, for me, it's like a contraction. There's a contraction that happens. And love to me is like a relaxation, okay? So when fear arises, it might be a biological fear of I am in danger. And that I am is in danger, that egoic self-image identification, human biologicalness is in danger of dying, okay? Or of harm, okay? So there's that clinging to bodily life, absolutely. That is part of that fear and that biological existence of this body-mind makeup, okay? Then there is the fear that is still that identification based on our programming of not wanting to lose something. That attachment and aversion, fear comes into that attachment and aversion, right? I want this, I don't want this. I'm afraid of losing this, I'm afraid of losing this, right? So when we begin to see those propensities that we have and realize that, okay, this is a fear of life, bodily harm, or this is what we call a paper tiger, right? And we begin to discern between the two, then we work on that wisdom level of discernment with that paper tiger. Am I really at danger here in this moment, or is that my past kind of perfuming my present? That I'm in danger somehow. And that's what we call that fear that we experience is actually a reaction. And that reaction is that fight or flight response that, gets the adrenals going. And then we have that, our body says 60 to 90 seconds, but we don't let it move through us, we hold on to it. Okay. So if we want it to move through us, then we have to tend to, like Leslie was talking about, dropping into the sensations in the body that reveal the fear, the heat, the tingling, whatever it is in the here and now. And then whether it's a paper tiger or whether it's a true biological fear, like bodily life kind of situation, that reaction should move through us, that fight or flight response should move through us in 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, 3 minutes I think is the top, right? Yeah. But what happens is that we actually, because if it's something from the past or a projection for the future, we kind of get identified and caught in there. So that activity of mind can be very, very strong. Right? So all of these practices are to remove, kind of like to step away from that activity of mind so we can begin to see with discernment what's real and what's not real, right? And we know that what's real is unchanging. So fear is constantly changing, right? That's pointing to duality and change. So I would say, for yourself, because I've heard you ask this a couple times about that piece around prana, that prana will never hurt you. That when that thought comes up, check in with yourself, because it may be, don't like doubt it or hesitate or anything, but it might be an actual prompting of prana saying, balance yourself or steady yourself. Or it might be your fear that's coming in saying, I don't want to get hurt. And then the more you attune to that, you'll begin to know for yourself where that line is for you. And if it's just simply a thought coming in and it's directing you to steady and balance, it's perfect. And just follow that, because that's guidance of prana. So my sense is, if you can relax with it, just whatever it is, even if you feel that come in, if you can relax and be at ease with that, whatever needs to be revealed to you about that will be revealed. But as you're wanting to capture the understanding of that, there's a contraction. Even a subtle contraction happening around that. So the more you can just allow to be as it is without needing it to be any different, something will be revealed to you. Because that subtle wanting to figure it out could be mind trying to grab it. Absolutely, I love the fear. Because it's also a tuning fork, right?
Yeah.
It's a natural biological tuning fork too. There's something that came up, is like how we perceive like block, density, and for me I see density as it has some it's not so hard. It feels like it's has a potential to be porous and can dissolve a little bit. So that's just what I see for me. So what I'm hearing is that there's a fear that is a fear of in duality, okay? Past and future. What I'm hearing is there is a fear that happens in the moment, absolutely happens in the moment, that is part of that duality, right? What I'm hearing is that there is a natural biological fear that happens, that is that natural fight or flight response that occurs, and also some self, you didn't say this, but I sense it's like a self balancing fear that arises to adjust whatever's happening. And then your question is, what is that about?
Yeah.
Experiences come and go, right? So they're constantly changing, right? Experiences are constantly changing. So they're interesting and they're fun to talk about, but they happen. They come and they go. And they're never necessarily the same, right? They're just constantly shifting. They're changing. Right? They do inform us because they verify through direct perception, knowledge, right? So it's always so interesting. I actually practice playing, and then when I'm in front of people, like I lose my fingers. So it's always so fascinating. So because I practice this one chant, like, oh, we can do that, but I don't have it, and it's not here. So I can't even tell you I don't even know how to move my fingers for it. So we'll do the one that I know really well. noticing the steady presence. It's knowingly aware. Even with thought, images, sensations, sounds. Love and fear. All rising, all moving through the unmodified, spacious field of awareness. And the knower of the field are not separate. Slowly allow your hands to begin to find their way towards the center of the chest. Attuning to all the sensations as the hands move from the lap to each other. Including the slight pressure between the palms and the fingers and the hands as they touch. All of it arising to the unmodified field of awareness. Recognizing that field and the knower of the field are not separate. They are unchanging, timeless, and universal. Not identified with anything. And yet everything. And let's finish our satsang tonight with one sound of Om, the sound of existence. Let's take a deep breath in. Noticing even the sound of Om arises and moves through the unmodified, spacious field of awareness. Jai Bhagwan.
Jai Bhagwan.
So grateful for your presence tonight. Lovely evening. Again and again, Jai Bhagwan.